on the program. First of all, Brian, when you saw the seeding comes out, I think a lot of people were pretty much knew what was going on there. When you saw Alabama coming in on the number 9 line after Oklahoma on the 8 line, what was the reaction for you, your staff, and just the fans over there in Sooner Nation?
I think the general feeling is not thrilled. Yeah. And I don't think it's not because they don't think they can beat Alabama again. It's just they just played this game a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And as I've said, the NCAA basketball tournament has these protocols where they try to, keep the conference teams apart for as long as they can. So they'll move seeds up and down to avoid that. Football obviously is not doing that. And you don't play enough football games, in a given season to have this kind of a situation. This is just, I just don't like. I mean, Tulane's playing Ole Miss again. If Ole Miss wins that, they're going to play Georgia again. What are we doing here?
I mean, Brian, we almost had 3 in the first round if Notre Dame stayed in and would have played Texas A&M again. I mean, there's just so much going on, and I don't understand it. I don't understand these rematches early. If they're down the road, like you mentioned with the basketball tournament, that's fine. Have them down the road. Don't make them the first game of the tournament.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think teams – I mean, in the end, obviously you care if you're a top 4 seed. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference between 4 and 5 and then 8 and 9. But as long as you can maintain that part of it where the teams that are going to host home games stay in there and the ones that get by stay in there. But other than that, who cares about your seed? And let's just see different games. There's, I'm not crazy about conference championship games being rematches, but sometimes you don't have a lot of choice there. And that goes back to another thing that I think is an issue with this and doesn't solve all the problems, but I don't understand. Well, I kind of understand, but all these conferences just do not want to have divisions anymore.
Yeah, right.
Which I think in the case of the ACC this year might have helped them if they'd had divisions.
Yes.
They didn't, and we're left with all this chaos. But in the old Big 12, they had divisions, so sometimes you would have rematches and sometimes you wouldn't because the South would play the North. They just play 3 of the 6 teams. I don't know exactly how it worked with the SEC. We were in the Big 12 back in those days. But yeah, going back to the rematch is not exciting, but I think also, generally speaking, OU fans are just thrilled to have a home playoff game. They're thrilled to be back in the playoff for the first time since 2019. So in that sense, they don't care. But I just personally would rather see someone else other than Alabama, but that's the way it is. As I always say, college football always finds a way to get it wrong in one way or the other.
It's a good way to put it.
This year is definitely no exception to that. But what is the atmosphere like in Norman right now as they gear up to host a first-round college football playoff game? I know the university is canceling classes on Friday, so, I mean, that's going to be a treat on campus leading up to that game.
Yeah, it goes back to the old saying by the Oklahoma president back in the 40s that they want a university that the football team can be proud of. And that's kind of what this is. Football rules the day, so no final exams that day, which, I get it. And it's also graduation, too. They're having to move that around. I don't think there's as many commencement ceremonies in December as there is in May, but they're having to shift that around as well. Fan-wise, I think everyone's pumped. I mean, 12 months ago, he was 6-6 getting ready to play in the Armed Forces Bowl and eventually lost to Navy, and we're 6-7. And we talked about this a week or so ago. How many games did Brent Venables need to win this year to keep his job? He succeeded there. So where we are from where it was 12 months ago, Sooner fans are pumped about this. And now, is the offense clicking the way it needs to be? No, but they're in it, and as long as you get in it, you never know what can happen. We saw what Ohio State did last year, got on a roll and won it all.
Yeah, you touched on my point because the thing that I think about this tournament is that everybody plays, like outside of maybe JMU, Oregon, which I think we all know how that was going to go. It feels like everybody's already got a beat on this game. Okay, well, the offenses will be terrible, the points will be at a premium, and this game will end, 10-7 or whatever the case is. As you look at the first game for Alabama, Oklahoma, to what they will present on the field coming up next week and the teams that you've seen in between then, what are some of the ways that Oklahoma will have to execute in order to be able to come away with the win outside of just, playing phenomenal defense and coming up with 10 sacks?
Well, I think it's the old saying about keep doing it till they stop it. And for Oklahoma to keep doing what they were doing with pressuring the quarterback and causing havoc for the Alabama offense until they can figure out a way to move the ball. Keep doing that. They've done it 2 years in a row now. They did it in Norman last year. They did it in Tuscaloosa this year. Now they get to play them in Norman again. And so far, Alabama has not really solved that problem very well. So from that standpoint, I say keep doing it. Oklahoma offensively, they gotta get in a running game established in some way. Of course, you can say the same thing about Alabama, but I think the comfort level of being at home is going to help. Oklahoma has played better at home, even though they got 2 big road wins against Tennessee and Alabama. And people kind of forget a little bit. The Ole Miss game was a rainy day. I don't know how much that affected the Sooners, and right. I don't know, what kind of a wet ball thrower John Mateer is, but that was a rain game. So I think Oklahoma's got to be able to establish the running game, and as long as they can make 2 or 3 big offensive plays, whether it's a run or a pass, that might be enough to win the game. And then special teams has been fantastic for Oklahoma this year. The SEC all-conference teams coming out yesterday. Tate Sandell, first-team all-SEC kicker. Grayson Miller, first-team all-SEC punter. Yeah, that too. That's the first time in the history of OU football they've had the first-team all-conference kicker and punter. And OU's got a pretty good football history.
Yeah.
And then Satania was second-team all-purpose. So I think Oklahoma's got an edge in the special teams as well.
I feel like when I saw that this matchup came out, and Gerhard was a little bit surprised that Alabama was a 1.5-point favorite going on the road, and seeing what happened last time, I said to him, I think it's maybe because it's so hard to beat a team twice, and for Oklahoma 3 times in the last year. But when you look at this game, it's hard to not think, oh boy, it's going to be a defensive slugfest. I mean, is that what it's going to come down to? Because, I mean, we don't know the status of Jam Miller. And the run game for both teams, as you mentioned, has been a little bit of a question. So could we see like 20-plus possessions in like the first 3 quarters? It just goes back and forth?
Yeah, we might. I mean, and it might be the possession length may be determined by turnovers. Does someone cause a turnover early in the possession or late in the possession? I think it will be low scoring. I think if I don't know if the coaches aren't going to tell you this, but maybe the first to 20 wins or someone can get to 20 points. That's probably going to be enough. I just can't see it being anything other than a low scoring game. And as far as the rematch, OU's got a pretty good history in rematches. I wrote it down. I don't have it here with me, but a lot of those Big 12 titles OU won, that was a rematch and they won it. And they even had, I think, 4 or 5 occasions where they went 3-0 against a team over a 2-year span many times. Now, were they Alabama? No. Right. But is this the best Alabama team ever? No.
Yeah.
That's not the case either. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a defensive struggle. And as Brent Venables said on his Zoom call Sunday, there's not going to be any newfangled things that each team's throwing at each other. They know what each other does. They're just going to come down to executing and who can execute the best.
Absolutely, and we got a chance to hear from Coach Venables, hoping history repeats itself, as Brian mentioned, that this proud program, very, very good at rematches.
The challenge of playing somebody you didn't play was getting to know who they are, and you really don't have a great idea how you match up in certain areas. This is one that there's familiarity with both teams. 3rd time that we're playing in, just a little over a year, and obviously, we have tendencies. They have tendencies. They have certain matchups they like. We have certain matchups that we like. But at the end of the day, you can throw that all out. It's time to, start completely over. And, all that matters, good or bad, from the past, all that matters is what you do, here and moving forward.